There was a scientist working away in obscurity for years, with peculiar experiments on spiders. After years and years, he placed an advertisement in several academic journals to let the community know he was going to host a live show to demonstrate his findings. At the event, hundreds were there more out of curiosity than anything else, as the details of the findings were kept secret. The man himself wandered on stage and silenced the murmurs. Today I will demonstrate two things. The first is that spiders can understand and respond to basic commands. The crowd laughed and jeered, but undeterred, he opened a box on his desk and a spider crawled out. "Spider, walk left!" The spider moved to its left. The crowd was silenced. "Spider, move right." The spider moved right. The crowd gasped, forward and moved to the backward. The spider responded again and again. The crowd applauded in awe. The scientist then removed all of the spider's legs. The crowd, confused by this, watched in silence. Move left. The spider didn't move. Move right. Nothing. Forward, backward, no response. This is to demonstrate my second finding. Once you remove a spider's legs, it goes deaf. 1. An Irishman, Mick, was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. He had already won 500,000 euros. "You've done very well," said the presenter, "but for €1,000,000, you've only got one lifeline left, and phone a friend. Which of the following birds does not build its own nest? A. Sparrow, B. Thrush, call C. Magpie, D. Cuckoo." "I don't know," said Mick. "I'll use my last lifeline and phone my friend Patty." Patty wasn't the smartest, but Mick had his number memorized. Mick rang and repeated the question to Patty. "That's simple. It's a cuckoo," Patty said. "Are you sure? There's a lot of money on this." "Yes." Mick hung up the phone and said, "I'll go with cuckoo." "Is that your final answer?" asked Chris. "Yup." There was a pause. Then the presenter screamed, "Cuckoo is correct! You've won €1,000,000! Mick called Patty. "Tell me, Patty, how in heaven's name did you know it was the cuckoo that doesn't build its own nest?" "Well, duh, because he lives in a clock." 2. Dad's first drink with his son. I took my son out for his first pint. Off we went to our local pub only 2 blocks from the cottage. I got him a Guinness. He didn't like it, so I drank it. Then I got him a Kilkenny's pub. He didn't like that either, so I drank it. Finally, I thought he might like some Harplager. He didn't. I drank it. I thought maybe he'd like whiskey better than beer, so we tried a Jameson's. Nope. In desperation, I had him try that rare Redbreast, Ireland's finest. He wouldn't even smell it. What could I do but drink it? By the time I realized he just didn't like to drink, I was so drunk I could hardly push his pram. 3. Dopey and the other 7 dwarves go to visit the Pope. Doc goes up to the Pope and asks, "Pope, can you tell me, are there any dwarf nuns in the Vatican?" He thinks for a moment. "No," he says. "There are no dwarf nuns in the Vatican." The other dwarves chuckle. "Well, can you tell me, are there any dwarf nuns in all of Europe?" The Pope thinks for a second. "Pope, no. I don't believe there are any dwarf nuns in Europe." And the other dwarves start to laugh even harder. Dopey looks upset. "Well, can you tell me, are there any dwarf nuns in all the world?" he asks. The Popey takes a minute to think. He shakes his head. "No, I don't believe there are any dwarf nuns in the world." All of the dwarves burst out laughing and start chanting, "Dopey! Started a penguin! Dopey, a penguin!" 4. A little boy goes to his dad and asks, "Dad, what's politics?" Dad says, "Well, Dopey, son, let me try to explain it this way. I am the head of the family, so call me the Prime Minister. Your mother is the administrator of the money, so we call her the government. We are here to take care of your needs, so we will call you the people. The nanny, We will consider the working class. And your baby brother, we will call him the future. Now think about that and see if it makes sense." So the little boy goes off to bed, thinking about what Dad has said. Later that night, he hears his baby brother crying, so he gets up to check on him. He finds that the baby has severely soiled his nappy, so the little boy goes to his parents' room and finds his mother asleep. Not wanting to wake her, he goes to the nanny's room. Finding the door locked, he peeks in the keyhole and sees his father in bed with the nanny. He gives up and goes back to bed. The next morning, the little boy says to his father, "Dad, I think I understand the concept of politics now." The father says, "Good son. Tell me in your own words what you think politics is all about." The little boy replies, "The Prime Minister is the working class while the government is sound asleep. The people are being ignored and the future is in deep shit." 5. A guy chats with his milkman during the weekly daily delivery. "You should have seen yesterday's party. It was great. There was me, my wife, and many couples in the neighborhood. By the end, we were completely hammered." "Oh yeah, how did it go?" the milkman inquires. "Oh, well, we got so drunk that we got the idea for a little game. The men went into another room and stripped. Then one after the other, we'd walk out of the room with our bodies entirely covered by a bed sheet with a hole in it. Then the women had to guess who was under the sheet." "That does sound like a great party. I wish I'd been there." The milkman replies, "You might as well have been, 'cause your name came out a couple times." 6. An electrical engineer is at his grandpa's funeral. His parents never told him how his grandpa had passed, so he walks around the funeral party asking for clues. "He was at the gym," said one friend. But Grandpa had a strong body and heart, thought the grandson. "It was in the bathroom," said a cousin quietly, but he would say no more. "It was his vanity that killed him," said Grandma, weeping at the sight of his beautiful hair in the coffin. Utterly bewildered, the grandson goes to the owner of the YMCA, who is at the funeral, sitting quietly in the corner and shaking his head over and over. "What happened to my favorite grandpa?" demanded the grandson. "Your grandpa was electrocuted when he dropped his hairdryer into a vanity full of water at the gym." "Impossible! Grandpa always wore rubber shoes." "Yes, but that day he wasn't wearing his rubber pants." Saravitna. A boy and his grandpa are out looking for night crawlers in their backyard to go fishing, when the boy pulls out a huge night crawler and exclaims to his grandpa, "Grandpa, look at this one." His grandpa says, "That's quite the big night crawler you got there. Hey, bet you $5 you can't get that night crawler back in. It's whole." The little boy says, "Deal," then runs inside the house and into his grandparents' bathroom, lays the night crawler on the countertop, and grabs his grandma's hairspray and hairdryer, then begins to spray the worm with hairspray and dry it with the dryer. Pretty soon, the night crawler is so stiff and rigid that it is rock solid. The boy runs back outside to his grandpa and shows him his handiwork. "Watch, Grandpa." He sticks the night crawler back in it whole, and then pulls it back out, then throws into the bucket with the other worms. His grandpa says, "Hey, that's pretty smart. How'd you do that?" The boy tells him how he did it. "That's pretty goods." "Well, a bet is a bet. Here's your $5. I think we have enough worms to go fishing tomorrow. Let's head back into the house." They go back into the house, and boy goes to bed. The next morning, the little boy wakes up all excited to go fishing with his grandpa. He runs downstairs and sees his grandpa sitting at the table eating breakfast. The boy sits down at his spot and sees $5 on his placemat. "Grandpa, you already paid me for last night." "What's this for?" "Oh?" says the grandpa, grabbing the $5. "That's from your grandma." 8. My wife shouted at me, "You're so useless. You never tidy up or help with the housework. You're lazy and stupid, and I bet you don't even know how to keep a house tidy." I decided to prove her wrong, so I did the washing up. Ha! You should have seen her face when I showed her I knew how to load the dishes into the tumble dryer.